Doctor, I need your help.
Sure. What I can do is hire a man to take your seat on an airplane, have you sit next to me where I behave like a crazy person, and then when you speak to the flight attendant, she will accuse you of harassment. After that, I can hire a judge, and in her courtroom, she will pretend to be sentencing you to my anger management class. By the way, you'll have to hire a real lawyer and take time off from work to attend this fake trial. And more than once. The anger management session won't be fake, though. I'm going to spend all my time helping you and have my other patients operate as props. It won't be entirely clear why they would agree to this. But never mind that. I will then move into your apartment, go to your workplace, embarrass you in front of your boss, and on top of that, I will cause a series of traffic accidents. Somewhere in there, you'll be forced to fight a Buddhist priest and be involved in a brawl in a bar that the patrons may or may not have been aware was part of my plan. But anyway, the point to all of this psychological manipulation and torture is that you're going to learn to stick up for yourself.
Doctor, what are you talking about? I just need your help recommending a dentist.
Oh, sorry. I did know a dentist, but he was eaten by a big green plant from outer space.
Are you making a reference?
No, but I do want to say that if you ever find yourself locked up in an insane asylum for raping a 15-year-old girl, remember, you, and not the overworked nurse who has to deal with your bullshit, are the hero.
Are you sure you aren't referencing movies Jack Nicholson starred in?
Who's Jack Nicholson? But before you answer that, can you tell me what kind of world we live in where a man dressed up as a bat gets all my press? This town needs an enema.
Okay, that was definitely from Batman. Tell me the truth.
You can't handle the truth!
Okay, I really should have seen that coming. Welcome to Does This Still Work? The podcast that always asks, does this still work? I'm Joe Dixon.
And I'm George Romaka. And today we're discussing anger management from 2003 and some historical context. First, podcasty stuff. You can reach us at dtswpod@gmail.com, on Facebook, Letterboxd, and on our YouTube channel. Joe is on Blue Sky at joedixon.bsky.social. Please tell your friends about us, even the ones who feel pretty, oh so pretty, and leave 5-star ratings everywhere. You can pick what we watch and get extra per episode content by funding us on Patreon for as little as $1 a month at patreon.com/dtswpod. Just like our newest patrons, Nunya Bidness and Athena Atratone. Thank you so much for supporting the podcast.
Yes, thank you very much.
Now, Joe, take us back to 2003.
And that's the way it was.
Even though anger management does have some scenes in Boston, I'm going to stick to New York. Not that region really matters, since little in this film relates to real life in 2003, whether in Boston or New York or anywhere else. But anyway, if you recall the top events from 2003, you'll remember that they involved the explosion of the Space Shuttle Columbia, the invasion of Iraq, and SARS was a thing. Does anybody remember SARS? SARS, also known as Severe Respiratory Syndrome, it mainly affected people in Asia. Only 27 people in America got it, and nobody died from it here. 33 people died in Singapore, however, which I believe had the highest cases of fatalities. But here's the thing. You know what SARS was? Why, it was a coronavirus. That's right. Coronavirus didn't start in 2019 with COVID. It's been around for a long time.
Well, I mean, it is a family of viruses.
Yes, it is. Now, none of this has anything to do with this movie, though. In so much as this movie looks at medicine, it's strictly of the psychological version. Did anything happen with head shrinkers in 2003? As a matter of fact, yes. Beginning in 2002, according to the American Psychological Association, psychologists started getting the right to begin prescribing psychotropic medication to their patients. It started in New Mexico, and of course, that made its way to New York. George, read this headline from this 2003 article in New York Magazine.
Pill culture pops.
I will quote, "We've entered the golden age of self-medication. Drugs have become like hair products or cosmetics. This is brain styling, not mind altering. The early buzz was that Prozac makes you a different person, changes you fundamentally, if subtly. But habitual drug users that we are, we know that's not true. You, on your meds, only less freaky and more well-rested."
Hey, I'm going to interrupt there to say that is abso-fucking-lutely the case.
Okay.
I have ADHD. I have a prescription I have a diagnosis of ADHD. I got that when I was 29. I have heard adults with ADHD get put on meds and then they complain that it has sapped them of their creativity or that it numbed them out. That's not what happened. What happened was you didn't have any drive to do any of the shit you were doing. You were acting randomly, and now that you have control over it, you don't know what the fuck to do, and you don't feel like sitting down and actually learning a skill set.
Okay, back to the article. We have been listening to Prozac now for over 10 years. In that time, SSRIs, selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, in case you're not on one, has become as socially acceptable as Sudafed. Not that long ago, the only people who used prescription drugs for their mental health were the deeply and obviously messy. That's what I'm directly quoting that, people. It says deeply and obviously messy.
That's what the article said.
Yes. At that time, the crack epidemic still raged.
Parenthetically, for some fucking reason, they put that parenthetically in the middle of that sentence.
At that time, the crack epidemic still raged. You wouldn't have talked to your colleagues about what you took for insomnia. You bummed cigarettes off your friends instead of Ativan, and it might not even have occurred to you to take a pill for your garden variety depression or anxiety. Now the question is not, should I take something? It's, am I taking enough? Or am I taking the right ones? And any lingering doubts we had about drugging our way to better mental health seems to have been washed away in the past 2 dark years. End quote.
That's a fucking weird sentence right there. Like, it's dark that our doubts that we could actually medicate ourselves into better mental health are gone. That, like, we proved we can do that. That's dark.
I guess the implication is it's bad that we're taking pills as opposed to, I don't know, doing something else, suffering through it. I don't know. To be honest, I didn't read the whole article, so I don't know what the supposition.
Shame on you, Joe. Shame.
Well, it's linked in our notes if anybody wants to read the whole goddamn thing. Anyway, so if rather than doing whatever the fuck Jack Nicholson is doing to Adam Sandler, he had simply prescribed him some meds, we would have a much different movie. George, can you think of any drugs Adam Sandler or any of the characters in this picture could have used that may have worked better than the therapy presented in this movie?
I'm not sure that his problem would be solved by medication. His problem was trauma. Like, if you strip away the bullshit comedy in this movie, his problem was trauma inflicted during childhood. What he needs is therapy. He needs proper therapy. He needs, like, cognitive behavioral therapy to address his lack of ability to stand up for himself. But he also needs trauma-based therapies to take that moment in childhood that we will get to and turn it into a memory instead of something he re-experiences every time he goes to kiss his girlfriend in public.
Right. Which is a weird thing to be what it is. We'll get into it when we talk about that whole scene. But here's the thing. Isn't Jack Nicholson just giving him more trauma rather than helping him deal with trauma?
Yes, Joe. That's absolutely happening in this movie. This movie is full of shit. We'll get there.
Also, big human science news from that year was the human genome.
Woohoo!
Read this headline from the Daily News, George.
Human genetic map nearly complete. We had like 22 out of the 23 chromosomes.
I guess. Now, here are a few things human beings have gotten out of having our genes mapped. It helps doctors prescribe personalized treatments.
Mm-hmm.
It has helped scientists to understand how one's genes can contribute to diseases.
Mm-hmm.
The mapping of the Y chromosome can assist in learning what fertility treatments will work.
Mm-hmm.
This is all a very big deal. Now, before we get to the film, as you would imagine, many psychologists have critiqued this movie over the years. It turns out some of the things in the film are real techniques at controlling one's anger. The I feel pretty exercise is stupid, but doctors do have methods, not unlike that, for people to employ to help distract them from their rage. Obviously, where they all sit around and talk is straight out of Talking Cures. The film also demonstrates that anger exists in a person even when they seem calm. Passive-aggressive people supposedly struggle the most with their anger. These people tend to keep their tempers tightly held with no healthy outlet, which is something we all need, a place we can let out our fury that doesn't result in jail time or destruction of our relationships.
Yep.
And I really wish this film had done a better job at showing that as opposed to the absolute insane stuff Jack Nicholson does to this poor man in this movie.
Yep.
Anyway, George, tell us about Anger Management.
All right. This was directed by Peter Segal,
whose work both George and I have seen in Naked Gun 33 and The Third, and I've seen in Nutty Professor 2.
And this was written by David Dorfman. Wonder if he named the main character after himself. Blurbs. IMDb says, Dave Busnick is a businessman who is wrongly sentenced to an anger management program where he meets an aggressive instructor.
It's going to be a real twist there, actually, because turns out sentence may not be the proper word to use there.
Yeah. And on Tubi, because I felt cheap, when a mild-mannered guy gets into a brawl, the court remands him to an anger management class where the aggressive therapist could drive anyone mad.
And again, the court remands, not exactly.
Yeah. So, the film opens in 1978 Brooklyn, backed by Blondie's absolute earworm Heart of Glass. Young David Busnick is eyeing his crush, Sarah. They compliment each other's t-shirts. We learn that the school bully, Arnie Schenkman, who is giving a wedgie to some kid, has a sister who went insane. Sarah dares David to kiss her in front of everyone. Before that can happen, Arnie pantses him, eliciting laughs and jeers from literally everybody as if nobody has a shred of common decency. Even old ladies are mocking this 8-year-old's penis size.
I mean, that is so clearly ludicrous. What would have happened in any place but the world of this dumb movie is that kid, the people would have ran over to that kid and go like, what are you doing? Probably smacked him because it's 1978. And then the boy would have just pulled up his pants. And that really would have been the end of it.
And some adults would have been over, hey, are you okay?
Yeah.
The adults would not be sitting there making fun of the size of an 8-year-old's penis.
And why would they be? I mean, at best, the kids would go like, I don't know if the kids would even be laughing. Why would they be laughing? What would be funny to them? The boys all have the same size he does.
Yep.
Like, why is his dick not bigger? Like, doesn't make any sense. And the girls aren't going to care. I mean, just the whole thing makes no sense.
None.
It sets up the premise of this film ridiculously.
Now it's 25 years later. Dave Busnick, now working as a designer for a Husky Cat clothing line, is embarking.
What?
Yep. Is embarking on a business trip, and his girlfriend Linda is accompanying him to the security check. Linda encourages David to stand up for himself when his boss hangs up on him. She asks for a kiss, but there's a man who looks suspiciously like the Joker sitting in the shadows, watching them.
That guy's looking at us. You know I don't like it when people watch me kiss. I'm sorry.
He offers her a handshake instead and heads through the gate. Dave Busnick is played by Adam Sandler,
who we've seen for the show in Happy Gilmore. And we've both seen in Big Daddy. I've seen in Hustle, Uncut Gems, Top 5, That's My Boy, Funny People, and Punch Drunk Love.
And I've seen him in Coneheads, Billy Madison, The Wedding Singer, Waterboy, Deuce Bigelow, Male Gigolo, Little Nicky, Mr. Deeds, 51st Dates, Spanglish, You Don't Mess with the Zohan, and I've heard his voice work in Hotel Transylvania. And Linda is played by Marissa Tomei. And for the show, we've seen her in My Cousin Vinny, In the Bedroom, Before the Devil Knows You're Dead, and What Women Want. And for once, I don't think she gave the best performance.
Oh, I want to talk about Linda, but let's finish her credits. And we've both seen her in Spider-Man Far From Home, Spider-Man Homecoming, Captain America Civil War, and Avengers Endgame.
Where she is the absolute hottest Aunt May.
Hottest Aunt May ever. And I've seen her in The Big Short, Trainwreck, Amsterdam, and A Different World, the TV show, which I keep forgetting that that's where I first saw Marissa Tomei. Real quick, I don't want to distract because I know we're going to, obviously at the end, we'll discuss it completely, but this ending makes Linda, Marissa Tomei's character, the most evil person I've ever seen. This is the worst character Marissa Tomei has ever played.
Yep. 100%, yes.
All the versions I've seen her in, nothing she's done is this evil. She is in this picture, and it's not presented that way. It's not presented like that way at all.
And it's not her acting that's the problem. It's her character.
No. It is in the script.
This script is a fucking crime against humanity.
Oh my God. I just could not believe that. All right, we got to get into it.
We'll get
Jesus Christ. I didn't think like, wow, I would not marry this woman. She
don't bust your nut yet. We're going to get there. On the plane, David finds some guy in his seat. The guy won't move, but that Joker-looking motherfucker from earlier, who we will now know as Dr. Buddy Rydell, waves and cheerfully declares that the seat next to him is available, as if he could possibly know that information.
Well, in fact, he does know. The thing is, Dave doesn't ask how he could possibly know.
Yeah. So David sits next to him.
You're on my side of the armrest. We're not gonna have problems, are we?
Oh.
That could have been the Joker saying that. I'm just saying.
Yes. Dr. Buddy Rydell is played by Jack Nicholson, who we've seen for the show in Chinatown, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, Batman, and Terms of Endearment. And we both seen in The Last Detail. And I've seen him in The Departed, Mars Attacks, Wolf, A Few Good Men, Broadcast News, The Witches of Eastwick, Pritzi's Honor, The Shining, Carnal Knowledge, 5 Easy Pieces, and The Little Shop of Horrors, the 1960 version.
And I've seen him in As Good as It Gets. God, we gotta do that fucking movie.
We should both do, not both. Obviously, we're going to both do it, but we should do The Last Detail as well.
Yeah, we should. While airborne, a series of what appear to be ridiculous misunderstandings result in a flight attendant with a broken arm, and David being tased by an air marshal and removed from the plane. He misses his connecting flight. And I didn't have to credit her here. That's Nancy. That flight attendant is played by Nancy Carell, Steve Carell's wife.
Oh, did not know that. You know, when you first see that, you wonder, like, is something psychologically wrong with these people? Because she's being needlessly hostile to him for no reason whatsoever. And then everybody's being really like, why are they behaving this way?
Yeah. We know why by the end of the movie.
We'll find out, yeah.
In court, his lawyer, Sam, is unjustifiably confident that his case will be dismissed. Judge Brenda Daniels orders David to pay a fine and, to prevent him from being a public menace, sentences him to 20 hours of anger management therapy. Sam is played by Kevin Nealon, and for the show, we've seen him in Jeffrey and Happy Gilmore. We've both seen him in Saturday Night Live, and I've seen him in Coneheads, The Wedding Singer, Little Nicky, and You Don't Mess with the Zohan.
You know, I've noticed as we go through the credits, a lot of the same movies keep coming
Yeah,
up. So
because
I guess,
Adam Sandler keeps working with his friends. That's the tie. Judge Brenda Daniels is played by Lynn Thigpen,
who I've seen in The Warriors. Does anyone remember that movie? Shaft, the 2000 version, and Tootsie.
And I saw as the Chief in a bunch of episodes of Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego? And in Bicentennial Man.
I didn't know Carmen Sandiego had a boss. I just thought she just traveled the world.
No, the Chief of Police. She played Lynn Thigpen played the Chief of Police. You were trying to track down Carmen Sandiego.
Oh, she's looking for Carmen Sandiego.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know. I've never actually seen the cartoon. I have no idea.
It wasn't a cartoon. It was more like a game show thing.
Really?
But it was based on a video game.
All right.
It was like a learning video game because you had to like look at clues about things around the world and learn about different world cultures in order to track down this mastermind criminal.
Carmen Sandiego is a criminal?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that. I thought you were just someone who travels the world. I had no idea. Why do I have kids? Why would I be watching this?
She's like Waldo, but evil. David shows up to the anger management sessions and asks Dr. Rydell to just sign his forms off since he so obviously doesn't have an anger problem. Rydell suggests that David stay for at least one session, so, that happens. And here's where we meet a bunch of other angry people. Lou blacked out and beat the shit out of his boss. And he's played by Louis Guzman,
who we've seen from the show in Batteries Not Included, who I've seen in Boogie Nights, Punch Drunk Love, and Top 5.
And I've seen in The Count of Monte Cristo and a series of unfortunate events.
Every time I see the name The Count of Monte Cristo, it makes me want to have a Monte Cristo sandwich.
Me too. Chuck took a dump on his neighbor's porch. He has a massive inferiority complex and takes an immediate dislike to David. He's played by John Turturro,
who we've seen in the show in Do the Right Thing, Raging Bull, and The Big Lebowski, and who I've seen in Fading Gigolo, Quiz Show, The Batman, He Got Game, Clockers, Jungle Fever, Mo Better Blues, The Color of Money, Hannah and Her Sisters. I had no idea he was in that, but the credit said he was, so I'm saying it. To Live and Die in L.A., Desperately Seeking Susan, and The Night of, the TV miniseries on HBO, which was very good.
And I've seen him in Oh Brother, Where Art Thou?, Mr. Deeds, You Don't Mess with the Zohan, and Transformers. Then we have Nate, who gets big mad about sports, and is played by Jonathan Lauren,
who we both seen in Big Daddy, Kill Bill Volume 1, and Kill Bill Volume 2. And I've seen in Punch Drunk Love.
And I've seen in The Waterboy, Little Nicky, and 51st Dates. Then we have Stacy and Gina. They're adult film performers with a habit of mutilating people. Stacy is played by Krista Allen, and Gina is played by January Jones.
Who I've seen in X-Men, The First Class, and Love, actually. You know, of all the... look, none of the characters here are great, but they really, really do nothing with these two girls. The whole existence is, we're in porn, so we just can't stop making out.
Yep.
Like, this isn't their day job, and they wouldn't be actually, not doing that. This is our off time, but no, we're going to keep making out because the boys can enjoy it. I'm like, okay.
Mm-hmm. So then we are introduced to this movie's mimetic legacy, the chant of Goose Fraba, as a way of diffusing one's anger. It's the one thing everybody remembers from this fucking movie.
Didn't work on me.
Afterwards, David again asks to have his papers signed.
Let me explain something, Dave. There are two kinds of angry people. Explosive and implosive. Explosive is the kind of individual that you see screaming at the cashier for not taking their coupons. Implosive is the cashier who remains quiet day after day and finally shoots everyone in the store. You're the cashier.
And Doctor, what do you do to help him with that problem?
You poke all the buttons. You push all the buttons. You dial his rage meter to 90 and then leave it there, is what you do, apparently. Dr. Riddell doubles David's required anger management time and assigns him Chuck as an anger ally.
Which, of course, brings up the question, why would you do that? As you just said, George, Chuck makes an immediate dislike to David. Why would you team these two up? What? Well, we know what.
Because the script said so.
Well, the script says so, and also apparently Dr. Rydell thinks getting this guy angrier and angrier somehow makes him better.
Yep.
So, put the guy who's an asshole to him, put those two together. Now, by the way, how does that benefit Chuck?
Good question, Joe. Later, at a sports bar, Linda is hanging out with her old college friend, Andrew. David arrives as they're hugging and comments on it, just like that they're doing that.
Because, women aren't allowed to hug men when they're in a relationship.
Nope. Andrew is rich, has an unrequited love of Linda, and is hung like an Arizona can, as David will find out when he sneaks a peek at the urinal. He and Andrew have an antagonistic relationship. Linda leaves with David to go get milkshakes. Andrew is played by Alan Covert. For the show, we've seen him in Happy Gilmore, and I've seen him in The Wedding Singer, The Waterboy, Deuce, Bigelow, Male Gigolo, Little Nicky, Mr. D's 51st Dates, and Hotel Transylvania.
If Linda is upset about anything about her would-be possible husband, present-day boyfriend, she should be upset with him like, if I wanted to fuck this guy, I would have already. So the fact that you're jealous of him really speaks to a certain amount of immaturity on your part. Because seriously, I've known the guy for a long time. If I wanted to have sex with him, we would have already had sex.
Not only that, but he doesn't actually express it. Like, he just it's nice to see you hugging. It's the most passive-aggressive way to, get that point across, but it doesn't actually succeed in being, I'm jealous. It's just, I saw a thing.
Well, yeah, it's pretty clear. She would pick up these clues that he's jealous, because, he's asking about his penis? She's like, I've never seen it yet. Okay, but I'm like, what conversation is this?
We're about to be there, because when they get back to David's place, he comments about Andrew's nuclear dong. Linda had never seen it, but gets that this is causing David some insecurity, so she says nice things about his own pecker. Before this dysfunctional pillow talk can progress to kitchen sex, there is somebody at the door. It's Chuck, who just got fired from his ice cream truck job, and he needs his anger ally. So they go to a pool hall and get to know each other. The waitress is taking her sweet time getting their drinks, which leads to another train of calamity blamed on David's anger that breaks the waitress's nose.
Which begs the question, and again, there's another point at the end of the film we discuss it. Was she in on that? Did she want her nose broke?
You've got to pay me a lot of money if my nose is going to get broken. Back in court, Judge Daniels is less than a hair away from sending David to jail when Dr. Rydell shows up. She agrees to remand David to his care in his 30-day intensive anger management program.
I guess the audience should have picked up something was wrong the moment she's about to do the sentencing, and this man just waltzes in and just gets a chat with her and then just changes everything. This is a court of law. Who the hell are you? Even if she doesn't know him, you can't just walk in and do that.
This program involves Dr. Rydell moving in with David and setting down a list of rules longer than Andrew's mutant member. David only has one bed and no couch, so there's some forced and flatulent intimacy. Because comedy. Dr. Riddell wakes David up at 4 a.m., 3 hours earlier than usual, and insists on a very specifically prepared breakfast. When David serves it to him, he throws it at a wall with no explanation. Then he informs David that he'll be tagging along to his job.
Now, would it really be an example? I mean, I guess the idea is, again, he's passive-aggressive, David. But honestly, let's put this in perspective. Would it really have been outrageous for David at that point to go like, get the absolute fuck out of my house? I do not care. Go ahead and send me to jail. I'm not putting up with this bullshit. What I mean is, I guess this is what they want him to do anyway, but I'm like, come on. This is insane. This is the most insane thing I've ever seen in my goddamn life.
The only reason it's even mildly believable is because David lacks any ability to actually stand up for himself.
But Dr. Riddell's putting himself in real danger because this shit would make anybody snap. I would not have blamed David if he took a kitchen knife and shoved it right into Dr. Riddell. Riddell's taking some real risk here.
Yep. Riddell takes his sweet time getting dressed, leading to David running late to work. So he runs a red light. On a bridge, Riddell pulls David's parking brake. No, that's not a metaphor for his penis. Bringing the car to a halt and snarling traffic. He refuses to let them move until David is centered. To help this along, he has David sing I Feel Pretty from West Side Story.
It is a miracle the police do not show up because he causes a traffic accident.
I mean,
cars are crashing into each other back there.
I mean, on one hand, yes, but on the other hand, we know it's New York City, and like we saw what happened when you called the cops about that kid laying in the middle of the road for no fucking reason.
Fair.
David's boss, Frank Head, remarks on David's lateness before Dr. Riddell introduces himself. They more or less rehash the inciting incident on the plane, while Riddell repeatedly misnames Frank until David yells at him about it. Frank Head is played by Kurt Fuller,
who I know from Midnight in Paris.
And I know from Ghostbusters 2, Wayne's World, and Scary Movie. Later, as in later enough for golf to have happened, Andrew shows up at David's cubicle. He was just playing golf with Frank and arrives just as David is finishing up explaining his idea for a line of clothing for fat felines.
No one says, cats need clothing? Since when?
Remember when we were taking improv classes, what Chris told us, right? You're allowed one weird thing.
Yes.
Nobody told anybody involved in this production that. Riddell notices Andrew's, well, how his pants fit. And once Andrew leaves, he reinforces that David's girlfriend's best friend is well endowed and that David should feel some kind of way about that. Then Riddell sees a picture of Linda and gets all hot and bothered about her. I mean, I do that when I see a picture of Marissa Tomei, too.
Yeah, I mean, you can't blame him for that part, but woo! And also, like, what a weird obsession of this man's dong. I could see if you guys are gay, but you're not, so why are you still talking about it?
Although Riddell does throw that out there as,
yes,
he was
does.
Workshopping that maybe David was gay because of the cat clothing thing. I don't know why that would make gay, but...
Well, apparently the cat clothing and the fact that he lets his girlfriend be friends with a guy who has a huge dick. That obviously, homosexuality, right? Because you let your girlfriend have friends. So there's a man who has a huge penis.
I mean, I can't even get on board with that as a joke because the existence of the word girlfriend in that negates the gay. David calls Sam, his lawyer, in case we've forgotten, and learns that Riddell has a dozen lawsuits pending for his unorthodox techniques. Nothing ever fucking comes of that.
Never comes of it. And really, his lawyer plays very little factor in all this.
Mm-hmm.
At the end of this movie, I would be discussing my lawyer, a lawsuit. I would be discussing my lawyer.
I'd get a new lawyer so I could sue my lawyer. Yeah.
Yeah.
He says that if David can get proof that Riddell is nuts, he can get the order for treatment dropped. Back at David's, Riddell expresses displeasure at how his shirts are being ironed. When David reacts to this, he tells David to take his clothes off for a stress reduction technique. David tries to record this on audio tape to get that proof, but Riddell turns it around and makes David out to be a homophobe.
Which is ironic since what he did earlier was homophobic.
Yep. Riddell drives David to the red light district in the middle of the day, apparently, and picks up a prostitute, Galaxia, and tells them to get in the back with David to have a chat. David gets it on tape. It's a disgusting, annoying scene to watch, and I don't want to talk about it anymore.
I do want to say, though, this is the only time I actually laughed, and that's only because I recognized Woody Harrelson. I said, oh, wow, that's Woody Harrelson. And that was it.
Because Galaxia is played by Woody Harrelson,
who we know on the show from Indecent Proposal and White Men Can't Jump. And we both seen in Austin Powers, The Spy Who Shagged Me. Which, by the way, I don't know if you know. Do you know how controversial that title was? They weren't allowed to have that
talked
overseas.
about it. Yeah.
Yeah. It's Australian shagged, a bad word for some reason. Anyway, and I've seen him in Natural Born Killers, 3 Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri, True Detective, the miniseries, No Country for Old Men, Wag the Dog, Kingpin, and Money Train.
And I've seen him in Zombieland, The Hunger Games Catching Fire, and The Hunger Games Mockingjays Part 1 and 2, Solo, A Star Wars Story, and Zombieland Double Tap. Sam hears the tape, but since Riddell didn't order David to perform any sex acts, he can't use it, or something.
Not sure he could. You have a client forced to go to the red light district and chat up someone who's engaged in illegal activity. I think that's enough.
Yeah. Then, call waiting so that Buddy's assistant can call to say Buddy's mom is going to the hospital for some minor surgery. David spins that news as being more serious, and Buddy reacts devastated until David admits his lie. Riddell vows revenge and then decides to go to Boston to see his mom and to take David with him.
Why was that there?
Because the script said so.
I just don't understand. Why are we going to Boston? All this could have been done in New York.
Linda walks with David back to his place to collect Riddell for the trip. David is stressing out because he's stuck doing this trip with Riddell while he also needs to finish a catalog at work. Linda is frustrated that he is basically doing his boss's job and has been for years. When Riddell comes out, he recites one of Linda's own poems that he found crumpled on the floor in David's bedroom. See, that is a reason to break up with him.
Yeah, that is a big red flag right there. This is your girlfriend, obviously poetry results. She teaches it. She obviously writes it. And you crumble up the thing she gave you and just toss it away? And he doesn't recognize the poem either? Are you not reading her poetry? What do you two have in common?
So David goes for another handshake, but Linda convinces him to at least give her a peck on the cheek. In terms of this movie, that shows progress. To get his car out of the parking area, Riddell demolishes a car that was blocking his, claiming he can't have been acting in anger and had the presence of mind to leave his card on the windshield. On the drive, Riddell questions why David hasn't proposed to Linda yet. He says he's waiting to be something more than a secretary. Riddell correctly guesses David's plan to propose at a Yankees game and makes fun of it. Yep.
First of all, dude, I'm bad enough I have to ride with you to your mom's for some goddamn reason. You're supposed to be helping me with my anger management. Why are you interested in my love life? Don't worry about when I propose. Maybe we don't want to get married. How about that? If that's a possibility, why didn't you pop the question? None of your fucking business. Why?
Turns out Riddell's mom was having a jelly bean removed from her nose. With that settled, they go out to dinner.
I wonder, was that a bigger scene if they just cut it out?
No. It was that stupid from the get-go. An attractive lady walks past their table, and Riddell threatens to fail David out of the program if he doesn't go ask her out, despite David insisting that it's effectively cheating on Linda. See, if he'd gotten that on tape, that probably would have been enough. So he awkwardly asks her if she'd like another drink, and she blows him off. Riddell says if he goes over there with confidence and she rejects him again, he'll release David from his program. He does suggest a specific tactic.
Just go over there and repeat the following. Verbatim. I'm sorry I was so rude before, but it's difficult for me to express myself when I'm on the verge of exploding in my pants.
Can you imagine having a doctor say that to you?
No. I've had a number of psychiatrists and therapists over the years. I can't imagine a single one of them saying that.
Well, I can, but then they wouldn't have a license the next day. What the fuck?
So David says those words without any confidence at all. The lady, Kendra, responds positively and offers to buy David a drink. Before long, they're chatting it up, and David realizes that Riddell has left the building. Kendra invites him back to her place.
Kendra is played by Heather Graham, who we know from the show in The Hangover, and we've both seen in Austin Powers' Spouse Shag Me, From Hell, and Twins. And I've seen in Boogie Nights, 6 Degrees of Separation, even Cowgirls Get the Blues, and Drugstore Cowboy. By the way, before we move on to the rest of Kendra's story here, it was really strange that she's sitting there, clearly wanting someone to approach her. I mean, just the way she's seated, clearly she wants someone to come over. And there are two dudes who are looking at Adam Sandler's character, judging him for going over to her, but they never approach her themselves, which they're clearly alone and they're clearly heterosexual. So you have to wonder, like, how come they don't do anything?
Good question, Joe.
I mean, the camera specifically shows them.
Yep.
So it's not like I'm just picking this up. I'm like, they're right there. Anyway.
At Kendra's, David starts combing the phone book for any local Riddells, and Heather Graham gives the absolute best yet unfortunate performance of this movie as a beautiful woman with an eating disorder. For yucks. David ends up being chased off when he thinks to mention having a girlfriend already.
Which he really should have mentioned while at the bar talking to her. I mean, what were they talking about the whole time?
By the way, I'm talking to you because my therapist is making me do it under the threat of me going to prison, and I already have a girlfriend. That is a perfectly valid opening line there.
Yeah, 100%.
But yeah, Heather Graham acted the shit out of that role, but it was such a shit role. David does eventually find Riddell's house. Turns out Kendra is an actress and an old patient of Riddell. The whole thing was revenge for the lie about his mom. And it's all fun and games, except that Riddell talked to Linda and told her that David was out with another woman and left out the part about setting it all up. And that tension lasts all of a minute, as in the morning, driving back, Riddell says he called Linda and explained everything, and now Linda's mad at the right person or something. When David takes a nap, Riddell drives them to a monastery, where he will get to make peace with his old bully. Arnie Shankman is now a Buddhist monk, and has eschewed wealth and violence. He is unrepentant, though, about the pain he caused David. Riddell fans the flames until the childhood nemeses are duking it out, with David eventually winning. Riddell produces a water pistol to keep the other monks at bay while they make their escape.
Arnie Shankman is played by John C. Reilly, who I know from Boogie Nights, Licorice Pizza, The Lobster, Cedar Rapids, and What's Eating Gilbert Grape. We've both seen, George and I, in Guardians of the Galaxy, Chicago, and Dolores Claiborne.
And I've seen him in Walk Hard, the Dewey Cox Story.
This man is very talented and is completely, well, to be fair, everyone's wasted in this movie. Mm-hmm. I'm going to say, he's wasted, but honestly, who isn't wasted in this picture? I'm not the biggest Adam Sandler fan, but he's done much better than this.
Yeah.
Can you imagine? I mean, first of all, so these are grown men. They're talking about an incident that happened when they were children. Would they really get into a fight? And would the guy like, oh, yeah, that was hilarious, pulling that? He'd be like, first of all, chances are, as a bully, he wouldn't even remember that he did that. Let's be frank. He probably did it to lots of other boys. Mm-hmm. And so this guy would not stand out to him. Who wouldn't be like, hey, and he's a monk now? You go, oh, I'm so sorry that happened. I apologize. I should never have done that. But of course, then I guess we wouldn't have this wonderful scene where he's fighting a monk.
Yep. Back in New York, Linda and David go for a sunset walk and talk. He tries to get over his procrastinating and propose, but he can't actually get himself to do it. Then Linda reveals that Riddell advised her to try separating from David for a while. He confronts Riddell at the anger management group therapy session. Riddell tells David that Linda's wanted to leave him for a while, and a trial separation is the best thing, and that after she dates a few losers, she'll be begging to come back.
Because that's how that works.
Yeah, right? So, the next day, David calls Linda and agrees to the separation. He's not okay, and Linda can tell. That's kind of important. It speaks to what a shit human being Linda is.
We'll get there.
When he gets home from work, Nate, Lou, and Chuck are waiting for him. Linda came by to drop off her keys, and they overheard her on her cell making a date with Andrew, and they know exactly when and where it's happening. That's too much temptation for David, so off they go. And by they, I mean David. Gina and Stacy meet him there for his plan to be on a fake date to make Linda jealous. God, I fucking hate this movie.
Can you imagine Nate, Lou, which apparently have no other lives? The film constantly shows them all together, so I guess they just make friends at this anger management, and they don't spend any time with other people, with other lives.
They're like stand-up comics in Manhattan that way.
And apparently they're very invested in this man. The doctor's not invested in them, apparently, but they're very invested in David.
Mm-hmm. So Linda isn't on a date with Andrew. She's on a date with Riddell. David pulls him aside, and Riddell pitches this as doing him a favor. Because of course, wouldn't David rather she be out with him than Andrew, what with that ginormous schlong and all? Mm-hmm. David buys this, then tries to wait around for them to leave, but they take too long, so he just heads home. Eventually, Riddell comes stumbling in and tells a tale about how he tried his best to sabotage his own date with Linda, and just slips in that before he left her place, they kissed for 5 seconds, and then for 10 seconds. And then he takes a phone call, ostensibly from Linda, promises to sign David's papers, and then says that he and Linda have fallen for each other. And he's not joking.
Which I'm fairly certain today, and certainly 2003, that would be a no-no. Granted, this isn't his patient, but still, fairly certain psychiatrists cannot date their patients'
significant others.
Yes.
Yeah. Next day, they're in court again because David predictably lost his shit and attacked Riddell that night. To Joe's point earlier about what danger Riddell was putting himself in. A trial date is set for an attempted murder charge, and a restraining order issued keeping David 500 feet from Riddell or his new girlfriend, Linda. But outside the courthouse, David watches Riddell take his neck brace off before getting into a cab with Linda and then waving to David. Then he gets a call from his boss about that catalog. So he shows up at work and hands Frank a catalog of Frank badly photo pasted into it before Andrew comes in announcing that he just got the job David was going for. There's so much in the end of this fucking movie. I couldn't wait for this movie to be over and to stop summarizing it, but it just didn't want to fucking end because it was just another goddamn thing after an anyway. Andrew also lets slip that Riddell is taking Linda to a Yankee game tonight. So David knocks Andrew out, which I thought that was funny. When he just reaches back and punches him in the face. I thought that was great.
That's because you wanted to punch somebody and you were happy it happened.
Yep. And he extracts a promise from Frank to give him that job, when he gets out of prison.
Here's a curious thing. Early in the film, Dr. Rydell says that David is a potential type of person who would come and start shooting up the place. Yet he does all of this. How does he know David isn't going to come shooting? He's lucky David when he attacked him. Guns are available in New York.
Yep.
Oh, Jesus. He specifically says that he has this personality that he would shoot. He's a mass shooter, basically. And yet, this.
Which is incorrect, by the way.
No, it's 100% incorrect. It's ridiculous.
So David drives like a bat out of hell to Yankee Stadium, where everyone knows Riddell. The setup is there for a ball field proposal. David gets onto the field where Galaxia happens to be a security guard who lets him make a run for the mic. This is David's graduation from anger management. He finally stood up for himself and asks Linda to marry him and kisses her in front of a stadium full of people.
Now, what I really found very curious about this, I mean, look, it's incredibly stupid, regardless how you take it, but this man's running around saying, not Linda's last name, just Linda. Like, it's a baseball stadium. What, there's no other Lindas? No other woman says, I'm Linda, what do you want? You think common sense would be like Linda blah, blah, whatever her last name is, Linda Blatterman or something. Linda Blatterman, where are you? It said like Linda. Goddamn, how many Lindas would be there?
Sometime later, at a barbecue, we get the post-exposition that with the exception of a few people like Shankman and the air marshal, everybody involved in everything was working for or with Riddell to get David to come out of his shell.
And whose idea was this?
Fucking Linda's.
Linda was behind this whole thing. Would you marry a woman who would do something like that to you?
No.
No. Fuck
if
no.
Hit did anything like that, that would be a divorce.
And yet he's completely cool with it. He's totally fine when she tells him, oh, me and Rydell, we're working together to get you to come out of your shell and stand up for yourself. Like, you are a horrible person. First of all, you teach poetry. How do you have the money to do all this? But regardless, you are a horrible person. I don't want to marry you. I never want to see you again. I may end up suing you.
Yeah. So the end.
The end. Ladies and gentlemen, what do you think we thought of this picture? Can you guess? Can you guess what we thought of this movie? Now, when you first saw this, George, did you like it?
Yes. So this has been a stressful week for me for reasons I'm not going to go into. But I knew it was going to be a stressful week for me. So I put in a movie that I remembered enjoying, thinking at least it'll be an easy watch. And usually with the easy watches, I have an easier time summarizing them. Boy, have I grown as a human being since whenever I fucking first saw this movie. Because all this movie did was infuriate me. And not because I was already having a rough week. Because everything in this movie, it is a mockery of mental health treatment.
Oh my God, yes.
And that's like all I have to say. I fuck all of the relationship dynamics can go fuck themselves, and the representation of mental health treatment in this movie can go fuck itself. This movie can die in a fire.
Shockingly awful. The weirdest thing, and we've had this discussion before about psychiatry being shown in movies. Most people in Hollywood, and certainly actors and writers, have all had some sort of therapy. They know how therapy works. Why do they always present it so wrong? I don't get it. How, like in, what was it, the one with Robin Williams is the doctor and Matt Damon's is
Good Will Hunting.
Good Will Hunting, thank you, yes. Good Will Hunting. One session, he cries, therapy's over, you had a good cry. Like, that doesn't how therapy works. If therapy's not over just because he has this big cry. This thing, his girlfriend goes to a psychiatrist. The psychiatrist says, sure, I'm going to do all this manipulative shit because that will help him get better. What the fuck are you talking about? This is not therapy, and they know it's not therapy. There is no way the people put this together, from Adam Sandler to Marissa Tomei to Jack Nicholson to the director to the writer. There's no way they didn't say, like, okay, this is bullshit, but what the hell? Let's put it out there.
This film is medical malpractice.
It is horrific. And that twist ending with Linda being the one behind the whole thing really rocked my world. Just absolutely, like, what the fuck? And that's a happy ending? That's a happy ending? He's married someone who would do something like that to him? That's supposed to be good?
That's terrible. Like, I can't do anything but agree with you on that. That's, yeah.
And it's just like glossed over. I'm like, I lost my fucking mind.
Mm-hmm.
I lost my goddamn mind when I saw the. Oh, you were behind this all along, honey. Oh, yes, I was. Oh, I love you. I love you too. What? What?
All right.
All right. Yeah.
This fucking movie doesn't work.
It does not work. Jesus Christ. For once, I'm going to agree with George on this Die in a Fire movie. George, what's up next?
All right. Next week, we'll be talking about Win-Win from 2011.
Now, this is a film I remember liking. God, I hope it stays up. That's the problem with revisiting films. Films you remember liking, and you go back and like, what the fuck was I thinking?
Yep.
Please, Win-Win. Do not be that picture.
Not for nothing. That's kind of the premise of our podcast.
Yes, it is.
That is the central conceit of this show, is that
it's true, but it's
sometimes movies aren't good anymore. They don't work anymore.
No, it's true, but it's still depressing. Like, when a film you remember liking and then going back to it, like, wow.
Mm-hmm.
Absolute wow. Jesus Christ. Anyway, we got it out of our system. So I guess that's it for this episode. I'm Joe Dixon. Thanks for listening.
And I'm George Romaka. Thanks for listening indeed, because if a podcast drops and there's no one around to hear it, it's just another collection of ones and zeros that doesn't matter.
Temper's the one thing you can't get rid of by losing it.
Go fuck yourself!
You've been listening to Does This Still Work? Produced by Joe Dixon and George Romaka. The hosts can be reached via social media, email, or the contact page at dtswpod.com. Be good to yourself and others, because that still works.
Is that psychologists as opposed to psychiatrists?
Yeah.
Okay, so psychologists in addition to psychiatrists. Okay. Hopefully the listeners will get that faster than I did.